Imagine waking up one morning to find that the gross domestic product of an entire European nation has vanished from your state's economy overnight. It didn't happen because of a stock market crash. It didn't happen because of an earthquake. It happened because of a single date on a calendar that became the most expensive deadline in American history. In the last 30 days, $1 trillion of wealth has quietly packed its bags and walked out of California, leaving a budget hole so deep that the middle class might never crawl out of it. Welcome back to Tax Hack Pro, the only channel where we dissect the financial headlines to save you from being the collateral damage of bad policy. If you care about your money, your future, and understanding the economic chess game being played with your tax dollars, you need to subscribe to Tax Hack Pro right now. We are tracking the money when the mainstream media is just tracking the politics. Today, we are breaking down the single most catastrophic financial event in California's modern history. You've heard the rumors. You've seen the headlines about Larry Page buying an island in Miami or Peter Thiel moving his entire operation. But what you haven't been told is the why. This wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was a mathematical necessity triggered by a trapdoor in a new law that almost nobody saw coming until it was too late. We are going to walk you through the timeline of the billionaire exodus, explain the terrifying math behind the proposed 2026 Billionaire Tax Act, and most importantly, explain why Gavin Newsom is terrified. Because when the rich leave, the bill doesn't disappear. It just gets passed down to you. To understand why private jets were scrambling out of Van Nuys and SFO in December, you have to look at the calendar. In late November 2025, a powerful healthcare union, backed by the SEIU, filed a ballot initiative that sent shockwaves through the family offices of Silicon Valley. They called it the 2026 Billionaire Tax Act. On the surface, the pitch was simple: a one-time 5% tax on anyone with a net worth over $1 billion. The proponents argued it would raise $100 billion to plug the holes in California's healthcare budget, which had been slashed by federal cuts. It's just 5%, they said. They can afford it, but here is where the tax hack analysis comes in. The devil is never in the headline. It is always in the fine print. The initiative contained a retroactivity clause. It stated that the tax would apply to anyone who was a resident of California on January 1, 2026. Do the math. The initiative was filed in November. The trap date was January 1st. That gave the wealthiest people on the planet roughly 30 days to completely dismantle their California lives and establish legal domiciles somewhere else. This wasn't a migration. It was an evacuation. If you were a billionaire sitting in Palo Alto on December 1st, you had two choices. Choice A: stay, hope the voters reject the measure in November 2026, but risk a tax bill that could cost you $500 million, $1 billion, or even $5 billion if it passes. Choice B: leave immediately, establish residency in Florida or Texas before the ball drops on New Year's Eve, and pay zero. When you look at it that way, leaving wasn't a political statement. It was fiduciary duty. We spoke with real estate insiders in Miami who described December 2025 as the most chaotic month in the history of luxury real estate. High-end broker Julian Johnston reported that billionaires were flying in, touring eight-figure properties, and closing in 7 days. 7 days in the world of ultra-high net worth real estate, a typical closing takes months. There are inspections, title searches, LLC formations, but these buyers didn't care. They weren't buying homes, they were buying tax shelters. Every day they waited was a gamble with a 9-figure price tag. Larry Page dropped $173 million on a compound. Peter Thiel, who had already been shifting his center of gravity, made it official. Larry Ellison, already in Lanai in Florida, watched as his peers joined him. Chamath Palihapitiya, the venture capitalist who hosts the All In podcast, put a number on it. He estimated that $1 trillion in wealth left the state in that 30-day window. To put that in perspective, $1 trillion is roughly the GDP of the Netherlands. It is gone, and it is likely never coming back. Why panic over 5%? This is what the average voter doesn't understand, and this is why you need to be subscribed to Tax Hack Pro, because we explain the liquidity crisis. A wealth tax is fundamentally different from an income tax. Income tax is paid on money you receive, cash that enters your bank account. You have the money to pay the tax because you just got paid. A wealth tax is a tax on net worth. This includes your company's stock, your real estate, your art collection, your private business. These are illiquid assets. Let's say you are a tech founder worth $10 billion. On paper, you are rich, but 99% of that wealth is tied up in your company's stock. You might only have $50 million in actual cash. If California hits you with a 5% wealth tax, you owe the state $500 million. But you only have $50 million in cash. How do you pay the bill? You have to sell your stock. Now, imagine 20 billionaires all trying to sell billions of dollars of stock at the same time to pay a tax bill. It crashes the stock price. It causes panic in the market. It devalues the very companies that drive California's economy. Furthermore, this tax was retroactive. That means even if you moved in February 2026, if the law passed, California would still come after you for the tax based on your January 1st status. The only way to win was to be gone before the clock struck midnight. There is a popular narrative that says, good riddance, we don't need them. But economics is not a morality play. It is a system of inputs and outputs. And California's system is dangerously fragile. California has the most progressive tax code in America. The top 1% of earners pay nearly 50% of all personal income tax collected by the state. Let me repeat that. Half the state's budget relies on 1% of the population. When Larry Page leaves, he doesn't just take his wealth tax potential. He takes his annual income tax payments. He takes his capital gains tax payments. He takes his property taxes. But it goes deeper. We call this the ecosystem exodus. When a billionaire moves their family office, the private company that manages their life and money, to Miami, they take the jobs with them. The investment managers earning $500,000 a year, they move to Miami. The executive assistants earning $150,000, gone. The private security details, gone. These are high-income earners who are also paying California taxes, buying California homes, and eating in California restaurants. When the whale leaves, the smaller fish follow the current. We are already seeing the impact on the luxury service sector in Los Angeles and San Francisco. High-end contractors, event planners, and luxury car dealerships are reporting a sudden freeze in future bookings. The money has left the building. This brings us to Gavin Newsom. Governor Newsom is a smart politician. He knows how to count votes, but he also knows how to read a balance sheet. And right now, his balance sheet is bleeding. Newsom has publicly opposed this wealth tax. He knows that wealth is mobile. He has warned that if you squeeze the golden goose too hard, it flies to Texas. But Newsom is trapped in a political vice. The backers of this initiative, the SEIU, are among the most powerful political donors in the Democratic Party. He needs their support for his future political ambitions, possibly a presidential run in 2028. He cannot come out and aggressively attack the union without alienating the progressive base he needs to win a primary, so he is offering tepid criticism. He calls the measure badly drafted. He says he expects it to be defeated. But his lack of forceful opposition in November and December was the signal the billionaires needed. They realized he couldn't protect them. Now, Newsom is staring at a budget deficit that was already projected at $2.9 billion, but could balloon to $20 billion or more if this revenue loss is permanent. He drained the rainy day fund over the last 2 years to patch holes. The reserve is down to $14 billion. If a recession hits now, California has no cushion left. If you are watching this and thinking, I'm not a billionaire, this doesn't affect me, you are missing the bigger picture. When the state loses its top taxpayers, they don't just cut spending. They come looking for new revenue. They look at the upper middle class. They look at small business owners. They look at you. That is why we built this channel, to show you what's coming before it hits your wallet. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, hit that subscribe button for Tax Hack Pro. It's free and it might just save you a fortune. Here is the part of the story that really gets interesting for tax nerds like us. Leaving California isn't as simple as buying a house in Florida. California has the most aggressive tax collection agency in the country, the Franchise Tax Board. The FTB is famous for conducting residency audits. Just because Larry Ellison says he lives in Florida doesn't mean California agrees. If this tax passes, expect the FTB to launch the most aggressive audit campaign in history. They will subpoena cell phone records. They will track credit card swipes. They will look at where your dentist is located. They will check where your dog is vetted. If they can prove you spent 183 days in California, or that your closest connection was still California on January 1st, they will try to seize that 5%. This is why the billionaires didn't just buy houses. They moved their entire operations. They are building a paper trail to prove they are gone. But for the smaller millionaires, the folks worth 10 million or 20 million, who are trying to leave now, the risk of a sticky audit is massive. You might be asking, why now? Aside from the ballot initiative, there is a federal pressure cooker at play. The One Big Beautiful Bill, passed at the federal level, has shifted the landscape. It cut federal healthcare funding to states like California, which created the budget hole the union is trying to fill. It also eliminated the SALT deduction caps in a way that benefits low-tax states. The divergence between a high tax, high service state like California and a zero tax, low service state like Florida has never been wider. For a wealthy individual, the difference in annual cost of living can be 13 to 15% of their total income. When you add a 5% wealth tax on top, the cost of being a Californian becomes mathematically indefensible. California isn't the first to try this. France tried a wealth tax in the early 2000s. What happened? 42,000 millionaires left the country. Brain drain exploded. Capital investment crashed. France eventually repealed the tax because it cost them more in lost economic activity than it raised in revenue. New York, Massachusetts, and Illinois are all watching California right now. They have similar proposals floating in their legislatures. If California collapses because of this, those proposals will likely die. But if California somehow manages to confiscate this wealth without total collapse, expect every blue state in America to copy-paste this law. This is a laboratory of democracy, and right now, the lab is on fire. So what happens next? The initiative still needs to gather signatures, but with union backing, they will likely hit the number. It will go on the ballot in November 2026. If it passes, the lawsuits will fly. There are massive constitutional questions about taxing assets retroactively and taxing assets that are not income. The Supreme Court might eventually strike it down, but remember, the damage is already done. The uncertainty was enough. The billionaires didn't wait for the court case. They left. Even if voters reject the measure 70 to 30, the trust is broken. The wealthy now know that California is actively hunting their net worth. That psychological shift is impossible to undo. You can repeal a tax law, but you cannot repeal the feeling that you are unwelcome. Let's bring this back to your kitchen table. When the state faces a $20 billion deficit because the rich left, they have two options: slash services like schools, police, and roads, or raise taxes on who is left. Who is left? The professionals, the doctors, the lawyers, the small business owners, the people who can't afford a private jet to Miami. We are likely going to see proposals to lower the threshold for the top income tax bracket. We might see higher gas taxes. We might see reduced funding for state universities. The billionaire tax was sold as a way to make the ultra-rich pay. In reality, it might be the catalyst that forces the middle class to pay more. This exodus is a lesson in behavioral economics. People respond to incentives. If you penalize success, you get less of it. If you tax wealth accumulation, the wealth moves. California is a beautiful state with incredible natural resources, innovation, and culture. But it is currently learning a harsh lesson. You cannot govern based on ideology alone. You have to respect the math. And the math just walked out the door. We will be tracking this ballot initiative every step of the way. We will be tracking the FTB's audit strategies, and we will be tracking the budget revisions from Sacramento. If you want the truth about your taxes, the economy, and how to protect your own slice of the American dream, you know what to do. Click that subscribe button for Tax Hack Pro. Don't let the government catch you sleeping. I'm your host signing off. Stay savvy, stay protected, and we'll see you in the next video.